Hi everybody, welcome to Superset's channel. Okay, she has put on us her channel so that we can tell the story and be done with it. Okay, it's becoming longer than I thought, but let's do it. Okay, so now you guys, I want to talk about other things that will happen in the church because I want you to understand why it became a place where I felt like this is not a place where I want to be. Okay, the whole time that we were doing this, the thing that for me was the thing that made me stay was the friendships, because there were people that I built really genuine friendships with, and there were people that were genuinely nice. Everybody was nice, but you had people that were genuinely nice and you had people that were fake nice because they had to be nice in the church, and they did the love bombing all the time. When the visitor comes to church, everybody goes and greets the visitor. They hug the visitor. Have you studied the Bible? How far are you? I can't wait for you to get baptized. Who brought you to church? And all of that and all of that. As you learn, as you join the church, you realize that there is just another way of drawing you to so that you can join the church. I still believe that there is a lot of people that were there to really genuinely serve God, but the leadership that was instilled in the leadership had instilled so much control that it stopped being about God and just being about church and being about what the leadership of the church wanted. Okay, so now we're going to talk about personal space. As a disciple, you guys, you had absolutely no personal space whatsoever. You were encouraged that if you live within a flat, encouraged to get flatmates that are disciples. If you, let's say you got a flat with a sister and you stay in a 2-bedroom flat, it's not going to be the two of you. There was always going to be people sleeping over. There was always going to be a sister that doesn't have a place to stay, that is homeless, that would end up at your place. And then if your place, they feel like your place is more convenient for whatever reason to be at, there was always going to be prayer at your place. There was always going to be sleepovers, all night prayers at your place. We did a lot of sleepovers, which I hated. I did everything I could to get out of sleepovers. And remember, you guys, I don't know if I mentioned in my last video, that you were not allowed to miss anything. Church, you were at church every single day. There were counts at church. And if you were leader of a Bible group, you had to text that every Sunday, every midweek, every Bible talk that your members are there. If they were not there, that whoever is discipled, the person will be asked, where is the person? Why are they not at church? People will come to church when their family members had died, and they will come to church, and then the next day is the funeral. If you, anyway, I'll talk about that when it comes to family, how they wanted you to spend limited time with family. So you had no personal space at all. I remember when we once shared with a friend that I had invited to church who ended up being a disciple. We stayed, and now we are staying in a self-catering at Unity Hall, and so we were sharing a room. We ended up sharing a room, which was convenient for us. We were doing the same course. We were going to church. And then we used to have disciples in our room all the time, sleep there all the time. And you are sneaking people in a lot of the times because sleepovers are not allowed, which really, because we're not supposed to lie. But we did it for Jesus. And I remember how miserable I was. And I remember how much we ended up, even with my friend, having so much issues. And it wasn't issues. I don't think she was understanding that my issues were not personal with her, because she was more social. So for her, she wasn't feeling what I was feeling in terms of, like, I just need my space. Like, even buying food, you guys, we will buy groceries, but then there's everybody here, everybody's eating here. You have to share everything. And now it's not like maybe like two people like G and A and B like before. Like you have like 4 people. Then maybe we will go to class, and then they will come stay in your room to wait to go to a midweek service, which was at night, because midweek services were at night, because it was after people come back from work, come back from school and all of that. So that for me was big, you guys. You had no personal space. This went even to sharing clothes, you guys. people eating your food, and the issues of trying to clean your own space. You just did not have your own personal space. Everything was church, and you were made to feel like you have to, And also in missing church, you were not supposed to miss church. I remember this one time I was sick. And all of the times I went to church like sick, because you just don't want to answer. This one time I couldn't. I had a migraine like no other. So I tell, because the other sisters were in my room, I tell them, so I tell them I can't go because I'm sick. Another sister, OA, had a car. The only sister that had a car on campus had a car. So she was coming to fetch them, because the church was going to be, I think it was a Friday devotion, was going to be in, the place was far. So they come to fetch. So A was like our leader, like the Bible group leader. So when they get in the car, she's asking where I am. They say, no, Ntando is sick, she's not coming. She's like, no, she cannot miss church, go and get her. They come to Marova. I'm like, guys, I'm sick, I cannot go. They go back to the car, they tell her. She's like, guys, we are not living without her. She's not allowed to miss church, So they come back, guys, I had a headache. So just out of Ukdu, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go so that I can just die in the car. So that I can just die in the car, and because now they're not leaving me alone. And so I go and I get in the car. I think when I just got in the car, then I started feeling like throwing up. So I got in the car, closed the door, and then I felt like throwing up, and then I opened the door and I just threw up. And then she's like, oh my God, I didn't think that. I just thought that maybe you don't want to go to... Like, they were always feeling like you're trying to get away from going to church. No, you can go. You can stay in. Now I'm irritated. Now I have to go up the stairs. And I'm a lifter, say you need to hold. Never used to work. So I went back. But that was the thing. You could be inside an ambulance being taken to the hospital, and they'll be like, no, you have to go to church first before you go to the hospital. Yes, you guys. And then there was a thing of like celebrity status. They like converting celebrities. There are celebrities right now that I know they were in the church that are no longer in the church. And they are a whole thing of studying the Bible, then getting baptized. How their baptism with celebrities was so different because they were celebrities. So there was a celebrity status thing in the church. And that applied when they are converting a celebrity. But there was also just within the people in the church, there was celebrity thing. People that were considered more spiritual. And also, like I said, guys, individuality was not encouraged in the church. Okay, like they judge spirituality by the number of people you bring in the church, the baptism, all of that. So then if you do all of that, you get to participate in the church, whether they're singing, whether they're dancing. I remember I wanted to dance so much this one time when they were doing a Women's Day event, and I was told that they don't think that I was going to be good with it, and I wasn't allowed to go to the audition that they had. And for an example, you guys, I feel like I'm good at public speaking. I've been told that I might sit in a room with a group of people, and I was quiet at that time because I guess really I was going through, I was finding myself, and I was in a space where I wasn't supposed to be. That didn't work for my personality, so a lot of the times I would be quiet. But even if I'm quiet in a room, if you say to me, do a presentation for us on whatever, I'm, if you give me time to prepare for that, I'm likely going to be very good with that presentation. I've gotten that feedback even in a workspace. I'm not scared to speak publicly. And public speaking, guys, is preaching. There will be times when I would think that I could probably preach with that word better than that person is preaching. Okay, whereas public speaking is preaching. It's just that you are public speaking about the word of God. But I could never get that opportunity to stand in front and speak. They could never know that I am that good. Because for me to stand there, they want me to do all the other things, which I really wasn't good at doing. So like I said, I had to become that person that they expect you to be for me to be able to participate in church. There were so many times where we had beaming choir in the church. The singing was very nice at church, but we had people that we would talk about how they bimba at church because they were spiritual. They were put in song leading. I remember this one sister who used to bimba so much. She will sing off tune. And we had people that could sing in the church, but they were not singing there in front. Why? Because they were not spiritual enough. So that's why I say individuality was not encouraged. There's one point that I didn't put in here that I want to talk about. ICOC believed in male leadership. Only males could lead in the church, okay? Women were not allowed in any way to lead men. In any way to lead men. If you were a leader in the church, it was as a woman, you were leading other women. You could be a leader of a study group if in that study group did not have a man. Let me give you an example. If you're having a Bible talk, because to do a Bible talk, you have to have experience being in a few Bible talks and know how you do it. Let's say you're in a Bible talk, there's 10 sisters and one brother. You have a sister that has been there 5 years, has been there 10 years, has been there whatever, and then there's one brother who's been a disciple for 5 months. Guess who's going to lead the Bible talk? So as the men, because they did not allow, a woman was supposed to submit. The submission went as far as, I will just give you an example. Let's say I've gone on a date with a brother and we are now we are walking back. He's walking me back to Res, and there is 2 ways to get to Res, and I'm like, brother, it's actually easier to go this way. Maybe because some brothers were not in our campus. We had brothers at VetsTech, at what was UJ before it was UJ. Yes, so we had brothers in other campuses. So maybe I'm like, it's easier to get to Res this way. That will be regarded as leading. If a brother says, no, we're going this way, we will have to go that way. Maybe I could say, no, brother, but I really don't think we should go this way. That's a long way, because obviously I'm stubborn. I'm going, and then we go that way. I'm going to hear about it from my disciple, because he's going to tell his disciple, oh, how did the date go? No, it went well, but I had times when I felt like the sister was trying to lead me. And then he tells his disciple tell your disciple disciples you about it. Why were you trying to do? You have to submit, let the brother take the leadership. How did I survive? Was it 3 years or what? So yes, you guys. So in church, because it's unavoidable that some women will have leadership skills that are just undeniable. You cannot put a woman in the corner forever, not in any space. It cannot happen. So, but women are not allowed to preach to men. So they will find a way, if they really feel like a sister, like they feel like the sister has something that they really want to hear. So they will find a way to say, if they feel like a sister is spiritual enough to be able, they would say a sister will, we're going to have sister whoever share with us. But in sharing, you are not, like preaching, guys, we need to repent, we need to do this as the church. It will be more like a sister sharing their testimony. Guys, this is what I've learned from the Bible. This is how God has spoken to me. But she will not be delivering a message to the people because she's not supposed to lead. That was the case in dating. That was the case in when you're now boyfriend and girlfriend with somebody in marriages. Men led. Okay, if you go on a group dates with brothers and the brothers will be the ones that decide, oh, they're going, let's do this now, whatever. Yes, irritating things like that. Yes, you guys. So yes, you could never have a ministry that is led by a woman. A woman could never become like a pastor or anything like that. No. No, you guys. And also, people were used a lot as free labor. Like campus students and teenagers were used as free labor for leadership and married couples, I think a lot of married couples really didn't have nannies, because you could just get a campus student, please come and babysit with me. I had never babysat for somebody, but I had never heard of anybody that was paid for it, So a lot of the couples were the babysitters would be the teenagers, the babysitters would be campus students. If the couple wanted to go out that night, obviously they're going to go out and come back late. Now you're sleeping at their place. You have a test, you have a whatever. It was called serving, you're serving them, So yes, they were used a lot as so being a couple, married couple, actually came with those benefits that you did not have to hire, and I think a lot of them did not, because you are also trying to avoid spending time with the outsiders, and so you're not going to hire somebody that is not a disciple, so you will use disciples, but the thing is you're not paying them, they're just free labor for you, and yes, you guys, sometimes like campus students will be excited to do things like that. We'll see, at least, because it struggles as a campus in, so if you go to a married couples, then you'll be having supper there and whatever, and but I did not. I was so happy that nobody thought I was worth taking care of their kids, because I don't think that I could have been able to do it. Okay, so I never, except for my sister, I never. By the way, my sister did get married in the church. Okay, so she was in the married couples at some point. She was a spiritual sister. We laugh about it when you talk about church sometimes and be like, hey. Hey, kade sasihamba. Hey, kade sasihamba. Now, you guys, let me talk about contribution. Contribution, we're talking money. Like, I believe this is what this whole thing is about. Okay, preparing you for all of this is about the contribution. The way that the contribution will be introduced to you, it will only be introduced to you, if I remember correctly, when you the first time that you are baptized, the first church service that you attend, that's when you will be introduced to the contribution. And obviously there will be a scripture that will be open to you regards to how you need to, the church, the running of the church is supposed to be financially supported by the members of the church. And this is how it went. You had every single member of the church, you had to contribute. Okay, you had to pledge. They will not call it tithe as such. They will just call it contribution. I think they wanted it to sound, but a lot of the times you will end up paying more than the tithe. I wish that they would just say the tithe, because some of us will not pay anything because we were not getting paid anything. Now you will have to make a pledge to say every week. It wasn't monthly, it wasn't yearly, it was every week. You had to have a pledge. If you say your pledge is you will give 100 rand to the church, that 100 rand, they will collect it like they are debt collectors. Okay, every midweek there is a point where everything stops. It's about contribution. To a point where you will encourage to start selling something. There was a time where I sold queen cakes in the church after my friend advised me, maybe you can bake and sell them. I would go to my sister's place, bake and sell them so that I could have contribution. Now, you guys, here's the thing. Uktitha, my understanding is that it comes from salary. It's supposed to come from salary. If you get a salary, then it's the 10th of the salary. With them, everybody, teenagers, students, whatever you had to, So every week you had this amount that you have to pay. If, let's say that this week you say, I really don't have, there is a debt. It's carried over to next week. Now, if you said you're giving 100 rand a week, then, or whatever, 10 rand, even if it's 10 rand, as a student, you don't even have 10 rand. 10 rand, then next week they write it down. So your group, your Bible group leader will write it down. At some point, you will have to pay that amount. You will have to. And I think the reason that they took pledges, your pledge is what every week, it was because obviously the church has to budget, because they have to know, okay, this soul that we have just one here, how much money is it bringing to the church? Okay, money was collected in that church willingly. So people were giving money willingly. You will feel bad that you are behind with the contribution because of the way that they did it. It was a debt until you pay it. If for the whole month you did not pay it, you would say that the disciple will come to you, listen, you are owing this much in contribution. When are you paying it? Every single soul paid. I'm talking even if you were a domestic worker. That's why in the church you didn't have a lot of people that were like domestic workers. I think honestly because really they were not targeting those people. I think students are easier because they're gullible, and then outside of the church they will try and target people that are working and all of that. You did not have people that were really like struggling, but no matter how much you are struggling, you will still have to pay. you still have to pay. Then we had something once a year that was called a special contribution. Okay, special contribution was basically, I think that if I think about it, this is not information that I got from somewhere. I just think that the leaders just wanted to get a bonus once a year, and they thought, how do we do that? And let's have this time where it's special contribution, where you still had that 10 rand or 100 rand or whatever, or 500 rand or 10,000 rand, whatever it is that was your pledge every week. But for special contribution, I can't remember if it was in June, you will make a bigger pledge for special contribution. This is my pledge. I'm going to give whatever, 10,000, I'm going to give 1,000, I'm going to give 500 if you're a student. And you were encouraged to go more and more and more every time that you make a pledge, okay? And then you were supposed to do whatever you can. You have to sell things, you have to whatever. I remember people selling their TVs because you had a deadline with a special contribution to say that, and every week they will announce, so this is how far we are as a branch with our special contribution. This was our target as a branch. This is what our bubble groups have made as pledges. This is what they've contributed. This is how far. So when it's coming closer to that time and people are not making contribution, I remember people selling their TVs. I remember people selling their sound systems to make contribution. I remember participating in yard sales. You sell the clothes you don't have. I remember selling my shoes. I put my shoes as a pledge. They would say that anything, we're going to do a yard sale. What do you want to put in? Anything, sister. People would say, oh, I'll put my jackets in. My shoes that didn't get bought, so I got them back. They were the only nice thing I had, okay? So that is what it would happen. This is what would happen. Imali was a lot, and I don't think that in branches they really realized how much money was important for the church, because obviously I think that they would collect it, and then and really church was run as a company. We had people that did the books or whatever, and and I'm sure that we were making millions for them, millions. And mind you guys, ICOC at the time had no assets that you could point at and say, this is the asset for the church. ICOC used, buildings, like I said, because sometimes it would be a school, sometimes it would be a community hall, but in those places, the nicer places, and they never had a church building. They never had a car for the church. Us walking around, we shouldn't have been walking. There should have been buses and taxis and whatever with the money we were contributing. The church had no. The only thing they had, the church, was that thing that they put those small glasses for. Isidro. We used to do Isidro, by the way. Yes, they had nothing. And the pulpit thing. And then they would use whatever venue they would be using. They would have chairs and whatever there. But the church had no, and maybe the sound too. Yeah, maybe the sound. But they had nothing. So imagine, basically we were giving millions every week, okay? Because the church is growing. People are giving. There were people that had really good jobs. They had to tithe, but then they have to, and then there's special contribution. And on top of that, you guys, if you had a car, you were so abused. You were so abused. So abused. Because then you will be asked to take this person here, this person there. And it wasn't always that you have to give, you were able to get money. If you take students somewhere, they might put 5 rand in that one year, 20 rand. What are you going to do? 20 rand needing a lokuzana, petrol, okay? So you guys, yes. And then also in the thing, Yoguti church came first. Put the kingdom of heaven first, or the kingdom of God first. Something like that. There was a thing that was said all the time. You could not take a job. Say you're done with your studies and now you're applying for jobs. You are not allowed to take a job in a province where there was no branch for the church, because then it's as good as you falling away, because obviously if you are a disciple, you're supposed to be attending every single church service, every single Bible talk, every single Bible study, every single going on dates, doing this. So if you move to a place where there is no church, you are falling away. That was how it was. So basically, there were people that were discouraged in at taking certain jobs because of that reason. Okay, I remember, you guys, and this is not a story that I heard directly from the person whom this happened to, but there was a brother who had, I believe, got a sponsorship to go study to become a pilot, and this is something that he had wanted for a long time, but he was going to have to move somewhere where it was going to be impossible for him to attend church. And at the same time that he got that funding, he was being asked by the church to go full-time in the church, to work for the church. I remember how I felt like the decision was so agonizing to me. Is that the word? Like, I remember that when I heard that brother had to make that decision, I remember thinking, how unfair is that? Why can't he go and study to be a pilot and become a pilot and then come work full-time in the church? Like, why would you not? I remember thinking, definitely this brother is going. Guess what? The brother didn't go. The brother went full-time in the church. I believe he's still full-time in the church, you know. There were people that left their studies halfway through and went and worked full-time in the church. So a lot of those people that made decisions like that stayed in the church when a lot of people were moving. You had to find a way to stay in the church, because some didn't finish their studies, some will finish their studies. You know, those courses where you do the course and then you have to go do the practicals for you to be fully have completed the studies. There were people that didn't do that because they were asked to go full time in the church. So then, if at some point you're thinking now you want to leave the church, then what do you have except and also your CV is you've only just worked for the church. How would you work for the church? I mean, evangelizer. You know, so a lot of people were affected. You know, a lot of people, when they left the church, they basically had to start over. People had to go back to school. People had to look for jobs when they didn't have experience, and all of that. I left when I was still on campus. Okay, so yes, you guys. So when you were working full-time for the church, you were basically just a staff like any other company, but it's just that your job is to win souls. You get a lot of people that you disciple, you check on different ministries and all of that stuff, and then you get paid. I have no idea how the salaries were like. When the document came out and exposed everything about the church, apparently one of the issues that was big in that document was the salaries of the leadership. Like, they were getting really good salaries, you know. It was like, is this about church or is this about you getting rich, you know, including them? There was a celebrity status, and that's the thing about ICOC, is that people would say it's not a cult, because a lot of the times with a cult, people tend to worship the leader, you know. With ICOC, it's not that you worship the leader, but the leader and his family did have, because I don't know what's happening now, did have a celebrity status to them. We were here in South Africa. He lives in America. It's a white guy, Cape Makin, lives in America. Like, let's say that one of his children is getting baptized. It would be a big thing at church. One of his children is graduating, big thing at church. So everything like that concerned the family. So he was held at that. People that will maybe get to go to America, the whole thing would be like, I was in the service where Cape Makin was, you know. So that was the thing. But he is not regarded, unlike other cults, he's not regarded as God. Okay? But we only were, yo. Yes, you guys. So when it came to your family, okay, listen, you were encouraged to spend as much time with people from the church, as much as possible, you know, to a point where us who were on campus, obviously when schools closed, your disciple will come to you and say, so we're closing on this day, what are you going to do? How long are you going to go home? Let's say you say, usually the schools will be closed for 3 weeks. You're like, I'm going to be home for 3 weeks because obviously, where am I going to stay in Joburg, And then you'll be like, I'm really thinking that I think maybe you should only go home for like 1 week. They will talk as if they're recommending something, but really you would know that basically you have to do that. That means you have to go home only for a week. Then if you come back, I was lucky that my sister lived in Joburg, so a lot of the times I could come back and live with her. Some people will have to ask other people, like ask someone from the singles ministry, can I come stay with you and whatever. A lot of the times, I would go home and just end up staying longer than I would just say, yes, okay, no, sister, I see. And then I would just stay long at home. But when I come back, that is what. And that's one of the things, you guys, that for me, really made me also leave the church, because I always felt like when I was at home during the holidays, I'm seeing my friends, and all of that. I was happier outside of the church. And every time I came back, I would feel this heavy thing here and that unhappiness. And I would just feel like it was so nice to not feel like, because when you're in Durban, there was a church in Durban, I would just go to a service on Sunday, not attend the rest of the things because it was far to be going to town every day because everything was happening in town. And I would just feel so free. I would feel so free, And I'll be like, why is it that you feel so happy when you're outside than you're inside? And I've always felt out of place with the church. So one holidays I went home, I came back and never went back. They come to check on me and open some scriptures for me to come back, and I would just say no. And I had left for the first time. Guys, the story is long. It had happened the first time. I think that first year I went the whole year, and then remember, you guys, okay, this is another issue that I had. Okay, I thought maybe I was going to do another video, but let me just do it here. This is another issue that I had. Everything for you was supposed to be in the church, meaning that even your soulmate was supposed to be in the church. You were supposed to find your partner here in the church. But the only way that you could date, you could be allowed to go steady and date for marriage was when you are spiritual. And I knew that I could never be like that because I didn't want to be like that. That's not who I am. So, and also when you have a sense of, I've already met someone outside of a church. Remember, if you watched my videos on how me and my fiance met, and when we were in Joburg, we were on and off, but we had already met each other. So if you've already met someone that you think might be your soulmates and they're outside of the church, and you know that there's no way that they could be part of the church, you have those things where you're like, so you mean really for me, I have to find people in this bunch here? I have to find someone in this bunch here? So when I was outside, of course, like I would see him, and then it would make you feel like, why does it feel right this side than this side? So I started just feeling more and more out of place. And when I attended church now, the church service that I used to really, really enjoy, I would just be miserable during church service. And I was getting discipled all the time that I'm looking miserable. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not inviting people to church. And it was getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And that 1 year, finally, I just went home, and I went longer than I was supposed to, way longer than I was supposed to, and I came back just before we opened school. They came and they checked on me, and they were like, what is the problem? And I didn't even want to explain at that point. Like, I was done. Like, I was just done. I was like, no. And I didn't go back, okay? A couple of months later, then the whole thing came out about the church. At the time, I didn't really know that it was... As much as everything was there to see, this is actually very, very cultish. I didn't really know, but when the whole thing came out to see the ICOC is a cult, people were saying that it's definitely a cult, the way that they run things. Then I was like, definitely. I went and I said, what is a cult? And then I was like, yeah. I was in a cult. But that is how the story goes, you guys. If you have questions, please put it in the comment section. If I can answer it in the comment section, I will answer it in the comment section. If it requires a video, I will do a video. But I think Usipo is tired of us here You know, she wants to check us out now. Anyway, thank you so much, you guys, for following my journey. Please like the video before Pumegona and share it with your friends, with your family, and even with strangers.